This is The Wilderness and the Wellspring, a podcast about the difficult times when you want to give up on your creative pursuits and the beauty of the act of creation. I'm your host, Jeff Lunt. This is Episode 9, Vulnerability and Self-Doubt. I wanted to talk about some of my struggles with vulnerability around creativity in particular, how I've adapted to doing things differently, how I used to really struggle with this and place a lot of emphasis on what other people think. My earliest memories, I think, of doing creative things is that when I was a kid, I was first learning how to write code and writing little games and demos and things. I would ask my brother, one of my brothers anyway, who was into this kind of stuff, like if he would actually play a game I was building. And what I meant by the question was I wasn't going to bother building a game that he wasn't going to play. And it wasn't because I was building games for him, really. It's because I didn't want to bother building games without some kind of audience, without, some idea of whether the game sounded like something someone else would play. Now, this was back in the 90s, and, it was before we had internet access at home. Learning resources and such were limited. I mean, you could certainly learn how to make games in some kind of programming language with sufficient books and stuff. And there were some things you could even check out from the library for free that had complete game code in them that would just demonstrate really basic games. And it was a start. It was a cool thing. But it never occurred to me at that time, and didn't occur to me for a very long time, to build games for whatever audience might exist. This was all before you could do things on the internet and reach out to people as easily as you can today. I also had really no idea if I had, built a game on my own, who I would even give it to or how I would get it out there other than just giving it to my friends. So I tended to place a lot of emphasis on the people immediately around me and what they thought, because what else did I have to go on? I think this resulted in me placing a lot of emphasis on what just those few people thought. And if I couldn't build something that they were interested in, then I kind of considered myself a failure. I placed a lot of my self-evaluation of how good I was on just a small handful of maybe 2 or 3 people. And for a long time, this led to a kind of codependence where so long as those people were saying something positive, I was feeling okay. But if they weren't, I was just feeling, pretty down in the dumps. That didn't stop me from writing code and working on little games all the time anyway. I just never really felt like what I was doing mattered, or that I was in a place to have any kind of success of any kind. That was pretty hard. It's a hard thing to be in that mindset all the time. And it takes a long time to kind of get out of that. People will tell you that, part of coming of age is kind of coming into your own, to learn to have some confidence, to stand up for yourself, to believe in yourself. And I think I'm there, but I came to it through many years of self-doubt and self-loathing. And because of that, I would push myself really, really hard. And one of the interesting things is now that I have a career writing software, and I'm certainly not, the world's greatest programmer or anything, but I can see the fruits of the labor of all those years of working really hard at it and trying to be really good. And I would say one of the outcomes now is at least I can write code with ease, and I can do it in multiple languages, and that's quite nice. If I have an idea for something I want to model in program code on a computer, it's within my reach, almost no matter what it is. I mean, there are specialties within software that are outside my reach that would take years to delve into. But in a broad sense, I could write a lot of things. There's a lot of code I could write without too much trouble, or I could learn to write. The way I got into writing games in the first place was just because I thought video games were fun, like a lot of other kids. And when I was 12 or so, my family got a secondhand computer that had the ability, well, first of all, it came with a bunch of games from the person we got it from. But it also, because it was a computer, you could write your own games in your own code, and you could even load up a game and inspect the game code, which was an amazing learning experience because you could look at the code of any game you wanted to play, and although the code didn't necessarily make any sense, it was you could start by first copying what you saw and then playing with it, experimenting with it, trying something new to see what the effects were, and basically reverse engineer what was going on. In this period, I was motivated by the curiosity, by the hope of building something interesting, and just wanting to know more. And I would say that along the way, I kind of lost that spark of curiosity and replaced it with the self-doubt. The self-doubt was the loudest voice for the longest time. And I've more recently come back to just doing it for fun, I'm very fortunate that, for the most part, my software career gives me, a very comfortable life. And so the code that I write outside of work is purely for my own enjoyment, or at least it should be, because since I'm not getting paid to do it, and it's mostly seen only by myself and a few other people around me. Some of those people are people I've met online, or friends, or other people I know that are just interested in doing coding for creative purposes. That's enough. I think the circle of people that I'm attached to is much broader than it's ever been. And yet it's not like it's huge. It's not like I have, tens of thousands of people listening to these podcasts or lined up waiting for, my various game projects to come out or whatever. I don't have a lot of people following repositories of code that I'm writing on GitHub or any of that. I've been able to find a place where my income from my just regular job is more than enough to make a life. And so now when I code on the side, I get to do it for the joy again, just like when I was new to it, and curiosity was driving a lot of the places I was going with code. And that's a very nice place to be. So I hope you get to experience something similar. if you're out there trying to make your mark as a creative person, I know it can be a struggle. I just hope you find some peace, even if you have to take on a regular day job to put a roof over your head, and your hopes of having a creative life as your primary income never come to fruition. I think most people don't have that opportunity, and that's okay. It's the way it is. We all got to work for a living in some form. So, don't be so hard on yourself. It really is okay just to do it as a hobby, even if that's all it ever is. This has been the Wilderness and the Wellspring podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Jeff Lunt Games. And I just wanted to say thanks for listening. See you next time.